So, what's been going on? My goal here is to give a little update on what's been happening. We moved onto the boat in June, and we started anchoring out here in Liberty Bay in sort of mid-June, beginning of June-ish. It's now December 28th, and we obviously missed our window to get down to Mexico, and so we've been anchoring here for the fall and now winter, and again we're going to be here for the spring and hoping to head down to Mexico in the summer or end of spring. And man, a lot has happened, but right now we're just trying to scrape our way to the end of the year when I'll get more money coming in, and then we can restock things. We had a real scare last week when the 135 or so feet of chain that we had out for our anchor turned out to not be nearly enough for the weather conditions, and we dragged anchor in the middle of the night. And it was scary, and as a result we had to head into the marina and tie up. And we couldn't get into a slip in the marina. The wind was so forceful that, so as the boat's coming in, here's the end of the slip, right? The wall's like this, it's coming in this way, going to this end, and the wind is coming straight this way. So we pull in, and I'm going hard in order to push against the wind. We get close to where we're gonna stop and we need to tie up. So I let off the power, and the wind throws the bow of the boat sideways and pushes us sideways straight out of the slip. Fortunately, I was pulling into the large 50-foot slips just inside the breakwater, which means that the slips were a little over 45 feet wide. So when it flipped us sideways, we just barely missed on both sides. It took a little bit of creative controlling and some fending off by Evander, but we managed to only scrape the bow a little bit once. After 3 in a row of trying to come in, getting flipped sideways and pushed out by the wind as soon as we slowed down. It was terrible. So, because we couldn't get in, we had to tie up on the outside of the breakwater, which means that, you know, we're experiencing 35 to 40 knot gusts of wind with a steady blowing 25 to 30 knots of wind. It was intense for hours and hours and hours. And so all that wind was coming at us straight on the beam and pushing creating waves that were slamming into us on the side of our boat. And we're tied up to a dock like this, so we're getting smashed into the dock over and over and over again. The side of the boat was flexing inward. It was terrifying. I got injured. It was unpleasant. Several people said that they had seen what was happening and were shocked and amazed and scared for us and all of those things, and I don't blame them. I was shocked and scared for us and all of those things too. Boat took a beating, got a little damage. There are some leaks up in the deck have been made much worse, and I have to figure them out. Because now if it rains hard enough, it'll leak water directly onto my bed and directly onto or right next to the breaker panel, which is no bueno at all. So I don't know. Anyway, we survived tied up in that situation for 36 hours, something like that. It was an overnight, an all day, and all night. And then mid-morning the following day, there was just enough of a break in the wind that we were able to cast off the dock, whip around, get back inside the breakwater, drive into a slip, and then we tied up in a way that the wind would push us away from the dock, not onto the dock. And we spent a week there just fixing the boat, consoling ourselves for how scary that was, and waiting for this huge windstorm to die down. Now is dead broke, and the port isn't happy that I did that. They need me to pay them. I told them they're going to have to wait till first week of January. As soon as I get paid, I'm going to go pay them. But they were pretty upset, I guess. They sent people over to look at my boat and take pictures, and I received an email saying, we're reaching out for 2 reasons. 1, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and 2, you owe us money and here's how you need to pay, and pay, or we'll impound your boat. So even though the wind hadn't died down yet, we left the marina to avoid any more charges. But while we were there, we managed to fix our anchor chain problem. What had happened is inside the chain locker, the anchor chain, so the windlass spins this way and the chain comes in and it gets spun a little bit as it's brought in. So now the windlass is spinning, pulling the chain in, dropping it down into the chain locker, and it's kind of getting a twist in it. Well, if you get enough of a twist, the chain links will turn and bind and then just create this like snarl that can't get back out of the chain locker. And that's what had happened to us. So we ran the entire 370 some odd feet of chain down the dock and then brought it back in while Evander crouched down at the chain locker inside and made sure that none of it. So there are 2 things that happen. One is the twisting thing, and the other thing is that it will fall on top of itself and trap itself on the way out. So the chain's coming in and it's hitting a slanted wall, and it kind of piles up on the slant, and then it gets heavy enough and falls over, and then it piles up more. Well, what happens is it can fall over and then fall over, and it can trap the chain in between the chain. It's hard to describe, but then when you're trying to pull it out, the chain is letting it out. Now it's trapped under another heavy pile of chain that comes after the piece that's trapped underneath it. It's just anyway. It took quite some time and effort, but we got the whole thing. The term is flaked, or in this case, hand flaked. We hand flaked the chain into the chain locker to make it easier to come out. We then came back out here and dropped a sufficient amount of chain. When you have 35 to 40 knots of wind in gusts and sustained winds above 20, 25 knots, you really want to have a scope, or the length of your chain and whatever you're using to hold yourself still or to the bottom. You want to let enough of that there's enough weight that it will hold you, and that there's enough length that if it gets stretched out, it doesn't come up at a steep angle, but at a shallow angle. That improves the holding. The steeper the angle, the more likely the anchor can get popped out. Because the anchor on this boat probably isn't quite heavy enough, it's a 20 kilo anchor for this 1973 Coronado 41 with a big old windy center cockpit. We're a high windage, heavy boat, and if the bow roller would let me put one on there, I'd put a much bigger anchor on. But anyway, if you figure it's about 25 feet here where we anchored, I don't know, because another one of the problems we're having is a lot of the electronics are not working correctly now. I believe some kind of leak is letting water in on the wires. So my Ray Marine multi-display doesn't function. The depth sounder doesn't function. It's not reporting anything. The GPS is still working, thank God. But I don't know how deep the water is here, specifically in the spot where we dropped the hook. But all the water around here is around 18 to 20 feet at low tide and whatever at high tide. And our bow roller is almost 6 feet off the water. So I figure 25 feet of water plus 6 feet of bow roller, 31 feet. Well, that means a 7-to-1 ratio. It means you'd want to have at least 217, 220 feet of chain out, minimum, for your scope. And then that should be enough scope to hold you in higher winds. We were sitting fine on 130 feet, but there's been no wind. You know, you get a little gust here and there, but we weren't going anywhere anyway. And so that short scope was more than sufficient. But now that we're having those winter winds coming through, you know. Anyway, we let out the chain. Evander flaked it in by hand as I brought it back on the boat. And we are now anchored with a much more correct length of chain to secure us in spot. So I have to finish some database programming for my old company, a little project I'm doing for them, and then I need to track down whatever's causing the electronics problems because I need a depth sounder. I need my GPS, like I need everything to work so I can navigate. And there's a few other things. The corrosion's getting a little out of hand on some of the safety, the stanchions and the lifelines. We've just got so many things to do. I mean, that's not even a millionth of the list. I have a list that's going to take us months. I have to modify the boom. I have to rig new lines. There's so much to do. But today's December 28th. I think today's my last day of just chilling out. I'm going to go watch Deadwood with my son. I'm not much for scripted television, but we've been watching it and it's been pretty good. But I'm going to go do that and just hang out and enjoy a sunny day in what's been a very not sunny month so far. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say, really. A lot's been happening since we moved here, but it's hard to think of anything but the last week or two because it's been really dramatic for us. Like, imagine that my hand is the dock that we're tied up to, okay? And that this hand represents the normal level of the boat on the dock. When the wind was coming in, we were getting smashed way high. Like, our fenders would get blown up and then not be between us and the dock anymore. And then we'd slam straight into the dock. So we'd have to tumble off the boat and get the fenders back in without getting your hands crushed or falling in. Or it was very high stress. So I'm just going to take the rest of the day and relax. And then tomorrow, finish off the database. Day after tomorrow, I want to get some corrosion control happening on the entire bow area. Stanchions, windlass, just everything. And then day after that, I don't know. We just have an endless list of jobs that we need to do. I guess we'll start cracking on them. I tell you though, Liberty Bay, it's a pretty sweet spot to spend time in. I'm glad this is where we decided to anchor for the winter. It's, for the most part, pretty calm. Pretty quiet, although we're near enough to civilization that you hear road noise sometimes. But we're here because we can go to the store and there's a boat that will come pump out our head every week. And if we went somewhere more private, neither of those things would be true. So it's all compromises.